there's a lot of doctors and nutritionists and people with different weight loss programs that have been on this show. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard throughout different podcasts that are going around. Why should someone be listening to this podcast and the program or the weight loss program that, uh, you know, beyond the other programs that exist out there today? Why should someone be listening to this podcast?
Yeah, I think I come at this from an extremely unique point of view. I struggled with my weight as a child and was a yo-yo dieter for the entirety of my life. And I, then crested into working in the weight loss industry really by mistake. I went to Weight Watchers to lose some weight, and I fell in love with it and worked my way up and, got all the way up into the executive levels and started helping celebrities like, Jennifer Hudson and Jessica Simpson and Katie Couric and Al Roker all lose weight. And, it propelled me onto a stage. It propelled me into opportunities to learn. I was actually a part of the science team of Weight Watchers when we were developing some of their most innovative plans in the past century. And it was this sort of place where me as a human who actually understands what it feels like to carry weight and lose weight was helping them develop their programs and could put that human perspective in around like, guys, this isn't just about counting points or just about food. It can't be about food. If it was just about food, we would all be like, okay, you told me to eat an apple instead of a Snickers bar, then, hey, I'll just do that then and I will have no problem. So I was like helping them connect the dots with the emotional and the behavioral and even the cognitive skills that I was seeing were necessary as I was helping thousands of people lose weight while keeping weight off of myself. So I think I don't know of anyone else who's out there who can say they understand the emotional and physical side of this the way that I do. And from Weight Watchers, I went on to do that multiple times around the world, helping large corporations really try to understand what would make that consumer more successful long term. So Lifetime Fitness and Optum and United Healthcare, and just started to work in device development and technology and using data to help people move the ball down the field a little bit and understand what changes they could make and what those changes did to help them. So I think, my perspective is from that of the actual user instead of someone who's what I found in my experience often I was working with, clinicians and dietitians and scientists who were very eager to help people, but they just had a very clinical sort of here are the rules kind of an outlook. And I believe that there's so much more at play here. And I think that has really carried people towards me to say, she gets it. She gets what I'm going through. And this isn't a perfect line, but I am able to make change and I am able to sustain these changes if I do it the right way. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like having a coach that actually has gotten to some level of professional, degree, at playing football, or having someone that's teaching you business or coaching you in business that has actually started a business and not just learn how to teach you business, which is what most university professors are these days. So it's it's definitely more relatable from your perspective because you understand the mental, the struggle, emotional difficulties. For people that don't know, what's been your journey and struggle of weight loss?
Yeah, I mean, I started very early in life, 13, 14 years old, gaining weight and being placed into a diet center early in life, which really shaped me. It put on a very, very restrictive diet, forced to weigh in weekly, kind of learning that I was either a good or a bad person based on that weekly weigh-in. And what I had done was either good or bad. It was just that very restrictive diet culture of those sort of 80s. And so, it was something that then plagued my life. I think it really, I yo-yo dieted then up and down 35 pounds, 30 pounds, 5 different times. And then that graduated to a 50-pound weight loss. I lost that and ultimately took off 65 pounds in another weight loss. I've lost hundreds of pounds. I understand what it feels like to, lose weight and think I did this and then have it all slip away from you multiple times. And, really doing the research for Target 100 for my book, working behind the scenes at all of these places and realizing that this couldn't be about food, right? I'm a smart person, and the people I work with that come to me, they're smart people. They're not. So that was really what took me on this journey of like, I need to never, ever regain this weight again. And I have to find out what the bases are, and then I want to share those. And so keeping this 65 pounds off now for like almost 16 years, and really understanding that it is truly a possibility to do that, and then finding and developing that and trying to share that with people in a world that is all about the quick fix and, oh, no, just eat these foods off of this list, or, do this thing and you'll be fine. I'm here to tell you it's a more complex situation. And when you treat it with the respect and the honor that this is your human body that you're taking care of, and that you're learning how you're being manipulated, honestly, by marketing and big food and corporations, and you learn how you're reacting to those things, you can stop the cycle. And that's my message to people, is that this is totally possible. And I've helped a lot of people do it.
Yeah, I get the sense that it's quite difficult for people that have this yo-yo diet, and yo-yo diet meaning kind of literally like the physical visualization of someone, losing weight and then regaining weight like a yo-yo. And I've read this statistic from Stanford Medicine that 80 to 85% of people that manage to lose weight at one point in their lives manage to regain it back at some point.
Yeah.
Which is crazy that only 10 to 15% of people can manage to actually keep it off. What's happening there? Like talk to me about the mental side of that and what it is about it that makes it so prevalent for people to just regain all of the weight that
Yeah, no, there's so much going on here physiologically. Like, we are not meant to live in the environment that we live in. I just taught a course last night. I started a new class called Weight Loss in the New World, and I gave a history of our weight issues in this country. We didn't have one. In the 1970s, there wasn't a weight issue. Maybe 10 or less than 10% of people really struggled with their weight. This is an environmental change to our world, not just our movement patterns, but we are inundated with foods that are highly addictive, filled with sugars. And then you layer on top of that when someone we've been trained. If you go to lose weight, if you use a traditional program that's really just talking about like calories in and calories out, or food and exercise, you've been inundated with this sort of like hang on by your fingernails, just eat what I tell you to eat mentality. And you can do that for so long, but then eventually you simply cannot continue to do that, not in the face of our physiology. And what we know now is, and what I'm so passionate about, is that this is all about our brain and brain science. This is not about your stomach. This is not about you having no willpower. This is about how we are built as humans to eat and consume food when we see it. It was imperative that we do that back in prehistoric times. If we found food, we had to eat it. We didn't come across it that often. We were hunting and gathering and trying to find it. So when we had the opportunity to eat it, we ate it all. And we have what we call a secondary hunger system that will allow you to overeat food if you are around food. So, I have a famous sort of visual in my book of this woman. If she sees food, smells food, or talks about food, she is physically drawn to eat food with a secondary hunger system that even if she's eaten food 5 minutes prior and is fully satiated, she's going to go and eat again. So, I always use the dessert cart analogy. If you went to a nice restaurant, you ate, and then they said, you want some dessert? You're like, oh, no, I'm full. They roll that dessert cart around because they know if you see it, you're not going to be able to say no, because we have this entire secondary hunger system that comes up and makes us even feel hungrier. We feel our mouth water, our stomachs grumble, and we feel a pull. Now you pull back for a moment and think about how much we are inundated with food in the new environment. Everywhere we go, the food manufacturers have learned that they can trigger us into overeating and make a ton of money doing that. So this epidemic of obesity is really about the fact that our environment became so inundated with food that you can't go anywhere without having food presented to you. Even in things like Netflix shows, they're constantly having their cool characters eating the product placement food. Now that we won't watch commercials, they're going to trigger you to watch somebody eat food or drink alcohol. I let people know that, a grocery store didn't look anything like our grocery stores of today. You had a fruits and vegetables section, and then you had maybe a little bit more, and that was about it. Now it's a maze. They are studying every move you make to get you to put stuff in. The stuff you're putting in your cart, the same scientists that got us hooked on cigarettes when they couldn't sell cigarettes anymore because people started to get smart to it, they all moved over to food. And they are manufacturing and producing foods that are highly palatable, impossible to stop eating. So this whole culture of shame and guilt around people not being able to sustain a weight loss and these massive numbers that you're talking about, it's because no one's telling the truth. This isn't about willpower. It's not about, oh, geez, should I eat an apple or a candy bar? Everyone knows they should eat the apple, but we are not programmed the way we are for salt, sugar, and fat in that candy bar. We know what we should do, but we don't have the skills. And these are not skills of what should I eat, which is where everyone's been trained of, oh, what should I eat? These are skills these are cognitive behavioral skills of understanding that what is physiologically happening for me. Can I check in with my hunger signals? Can I drink a glass of water? Can I walk away from the situation? Can I make sure I don't bring it into my environment? Those are the skills that actually the people who lose the weight, when we study them, really are doing. And they're not just focused on the food pillar. They're focused on the 6 pillars that we talk about in Target 100, which of course their food intake, but then their hydration levels, their movement patterns during the day, their exercise levels, their stress patterns and stress levels, and their sleep. So when we start to look at all of that, it's so hard because people come to me and they think, oh my gosh, I'm so broken. I've regained weight so many times. And I'm like, you're not broken. You just didn't know how to look at it the right way. Hormones go crazy when we don't have a good night's sleep that make us much, much hungrier. So if we are going to just go over here and eat from a food list and ignore our sleep patterns, we're going to regain the weight. So it's a lot more intricate. But we aim so hard to make it simple at Target 100, but also to help you understand you're not broken. This is what you were built to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Even like when you look at, talking about grocery store items, even the bananas that we eat today, I heard it's been genetically modified so that it tastes sweeter, so that it's more palatable for our tastes. But before it wasn't like that. It was like smaller. They weren't as sweet. Mm-hmm. And a lot of what we've eaten today is just not what our ancestors used to eat. And, you're talking about this second hunger drive that we have. Explain that a little bit from an evolutionary perspective. Is that just because for most of our ancestors, they would have some food that they would gather or hunt, but then they may go days without eating? So was this just our survival instinct that drove us to eat as much as we can while we can, but it doesn't match with the environment that we are in today, where we're in abundance of food, but our brain and our bodies are still wired in the way that we're trying to survive. Is that the idea?
That's exactly right. That you've done a great job. I joke about it in the book. I say, like, if they ran across a woolly mammoth, they had to eat the whole woolly mammoth because they had all these competing issues, right? They didn't have a microwave to heat it up tomorrow. They didn't have Tupperware to save it in a fridge, right? They also had enemies all around them who, if they left that, they were going to lose it. So they had the ability to eat and overeat until, way past fullness, hoping to then fat storage, right? Move that into fat storage so they could then wander maybe for weeks sometimes. I always say to people that come to me, I mean, we've got this crazy marketing and snacking culture that has been created since about the 80s, early 90s. They started this snacking culture. We as humans, it's not optimal, but many humans can go 30 days without food. You can't go 2 days without water. That's critical, right? Every single piece of us. We are overeating, and we're being driven to overeat by marketing and scientists who are driving these messages. I mean, I can't tell you. It's so funny. I talk to people about our exercise pillar, and the first thing I say to them is, you cannot outrun your fork. And you don't need a pre-workout snack and a post-workout snack. And right? Remember the marketing campaign of chocolate milk being the greatest post-workout snack?
Yeah.
It's criminal what's going on. It's really a man-made problem on so many levels. But what's also then, it's been surrounded or shrouded in guilt and shame, which another sort of an interesting thing about this is that when we feel guilt or shame, ever in any sense, the research that I did when we were writing Target 100 was the guilt and shame actually highlights and turns on the reward system in your brain. So you actually do more of what you didn't want to do in the first place. And I used to experience this all the time where I would, think I was really feeling on track. And this was part of the weight regaining. Oh no, I'm doing great. And then I would go and make a perceived mistake, right? I'd have the cookie or I'd go to a party and overeat. And I would feel so bad about it. And that guilt and shame actually highlight, we can see it in an MRI, the reward system, there's a frontal piece of the brain all about reward gets turned on and has you driving to do more of what you didn't want to do. So then I would find myself feeling bad. And then the next day I'd say, wake up and be like, let's go to a diner and get pancakes. And, let's go do this and do that. I'd be on this sort of binging behavior, which I had seen in other pieces of life. And we've all seen them, like when someone's gambling and they're losing. And you're like, why is that person continuing down the path? They're feeling that guilt and shame. The casino knows it and keeps pushing in chips into the middle of the table. It's exactly the same with food or shopping or sex. Anyone where your issues lie, and mine happen to be in the food realm, feeling badly about it then drove me to that overeating, which drove me away from the disciplines that I was trying to follow, eventually feeling so guilty and shameful. See, I am broken. I may as well just go this way. And then we call this the diet cycle of, you get to that point where you're like, oh, I have to do something. This lady just thought I was pregnant on the subway, and I'm not pregnant. Okay. I'll start a diet. We hold on by our fingernails for just long enough until we can't do it anymore, or we have a perceived mistake. And then the reward system gets lit up. We start eating out of control until we gain all the weight back, or if maybe even more, then we start another diet, which is just about food and just about restriction and just about willpower. And so all of that training has messed with people's brains to a point where they really do feel like this is not, there's so much apathy that I come across now. It used to be like, yeah, let's go, let's do this. And now it's just sort of like, I guess this is just the way it is. I'm never going to lose this weight. And you combine that with body positivity movement and, all of it, diet, this backlash against diet culture. And you just have people kind of going, it's fine. I'll just be in this place where I'm not really feeling my best. Maybe I'm getting into a disease state, but that other thing is way too hard mentally, physically, and emotionally for me to even think about it. And I think that's what's sad for me, is that what we teach at Target 100 is so simple and so easy that actually that's the hardest part about my job is helping people believe that it doesn't have to hurt. It can be very sustainable, very livable. And it's just this mental junk going around in their heads that it has to be that they hate every meal that they eat, that they feel, but it's not at all. It's so much easier and so much more simple. But if you don't know about what someone's doing to you, right? If you don't really understand the physiology that we're talking about right now, and really learn to see it, and that's what my courses really are all about, is like helping you to go like, oh, I just went to Old Navy. Why are they selling food at the checkout of a clothing store or at Marshall's? Why is there a huge maze of food? Because they know you're going to pick it up and buy it, and they make more money, higher margins on the food that they sell you than the other products in the store. Because, and sad enough, at Marshall's, they're getting stuff that's about to expire. And so they're pushing it out there and getting you to, I tell people this all the time. They've even put cameras up to watch how long it takes for you to stand in that line before you pick something up. So then they go so far as to underhire so that you stand in that line longer and you look at the chocolate and you look at the chocolate and you look, and the fifth time you look, decision fatigue sets in. You're late. So stress is starting to set in, and you all just get the candy and you grab that candy. You are being manipulated at every turn at this time.
Really? Is that published? Like that?
It's all out there.
Cameras
but
and
no
everything.
one's talking about it. They study every move. They're putting people under MRI brain scans and having them taste food and watching how much their brain is lighting up. And then they're changing it, having them taste it again, seeing if they can get a higher light up in the reward center. These scientists are being paid millions and millions of dollars to create highly palatable foods that even disappear from your tongue when you eat them, so that you feel like you need more, right? You're like, oh. That is all of what I'm talking about has been highly published. And if you finally understand the environment that you live in, and you're standing there at Marshall's and you understand what's occurring, your mouth is watering, you know that this is what's happening, and you have a piece of gum in your purse and you put that piece of mint gum in your mouth, you're good. And it's almost like, I always call it like Wonder Woman bracelets. You've got some skills to go, I see what's happening here. I don't want the candy. I am being pushed to want the candy. I think I want it because I'm having all of these thoughts and reactions that they're putting on me. But had I walked into a room, there was no candy, and I wouldn't be thinking about candy right now. It's only because they're presenting it to me. So, right, remember what I said to you. Every time you see it, smell it, or talk about it, you are driven to eat it. So they've learned this. So they're pushing it at us. They sell food at Home Depot.
Yeah.
That sentence alone should be like, what? I don't understand. Well, I'm going to get like a donut with my 2x4? Like, seriously? I can't even go to Home Depot and make it home without having a snack. That's what we've been led to believe. Yeah. So yeah, that's why when you say the 85% of people are regaining the weight, is that they're like lambs to a slaughter.
Yeah, and now that I look back at it, if I go to any checkout, it's usually like chocolate bars or some sweet candy or some sugary drink. It's always one of those. It's never something that is healthy.
No.
So that's interesting. It makes sense that even the way the grocery stores are all lined up and the way that it's structured, it's kind of designed so that we pay the most and that we're kind of tempted at the last piece of checkout at the end. So yeah, it's a downhill battle for a lot of people. And unfortunately, you mentioned apathy. Like, I resonate with that. I personally don't have weight loss problems, but you have problems that come with bad habits in general. Like for me, let's say it's going to bed too late or trying not to drink. And I find that what happens is, if you tell yourself and you set a goal internally not to drink, let's say for the next 3 or 4 months, and then you do it after a week or two, then what happens is you doubt your inner voice. You doubt yourself internally, and you think of yourself over time as the person that's not able to do what he or she tells themselves that they're trying to do. And then it transfers it to other aspects of your life, right? It transfers to your relationships, your work, transfers to your health. And it's a big problem mentally. It's not just about whether you lose weight or not. What that does to your self-confidence, it really can harm other aspects of your life. So the fact that 85% of people are facing that, I can't imagine the amount of detriment that's doing to other aspects of their lives. I mean,
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about that, because I know you've had
No, I love that
issues
you
with that.
just share that. That is so relatable. I think all of us can. And you're talking about the same mechanisms, right? That let's just take alcohol. Like I always joke that I'm a wino. I love alcohol. I think it's like delicious and I just love it, but I have to use my skills with it as well, right? And that is very, very similarly being marketed to us, being culturally changed into that. Isn't it normal that we would have a play date and drink wine together? Like, no, that's not normal that I would have my young children running around someone's house while I get wasted. Like, that's not normal, but they're normalizing it because they make more money by normalizing these things. But your relatability in saying, when I want to make a change, right? And and I think it's really important that we talk about habits. When we want to change a habit, let's just use alcohol so that we're not talking about weight loss, or, maybe it is someone is doing a little too much online gambling or these other things that light the brain up that are so highly accessible at this point that they have become very dangerous. And if we don't understand habit formation, I think we fall into what you're talking about right now, which is setting up a goal that we believe is attainable, then hitting a challenge with it, and perhaps doing something that we didn't want to do, just like I was talking about with food, which sets up shame and guilt. The shame and guilt then go into these other parts of our lives. Like you said, they make us feel that maybe we can't trust ourselves and, I'm not good enough. It's funny, I'm looking at my desk here. I keep something on my desk when I'm teaching habit formation, and we need to talk a little bit about habit formation, is I keep this B on my desk. I want everyone to stop trying to get A's. So your example is such a perfect example of, you set a goal. You say, I'm not going to drink for 3 or 4 months. I'm really going to lock it down. I have a 19-year-old son who's always trying to lock it down. And he says, I'm going to lock it down. And I'm like, okay, how about if we lock it down in a range, right? Okay, for 3 or 4 months, I'm going to only drink 4 to 7 times. Right? I'm not going to drink, but I'm only going to drink a small amount of times, and not just an exact number, because an exact number, once we go over it, drives guilt and shame. But if instead we say, in the next 6 months, I'd like to drink 6 times or 6 to 8 times, right? Give ourselves a range, then we can map that. And we map it differently when we're trying to create a habit and create good feelings. We go and we actually give ourselves a star, if you will. I even literally give myself a star on a piece of paper. Like, I'm doing a challenge to drink 25 times in 2025. That's going to be a challenge for me because I love wine. I'd love to have some every weekend, but I find it makes me sleepy. It's like my workouts aren't as good. It's kind of like I'm noticing that it's not as helpful as I thought it was. So I'm literally giving myself a star every single day that I don't drink, saying, okay. And then I'm going, okay, in February, there's nothing really going on, but my father-in-law is turning 80 at this beautiful steakhouse on March 9th. And I want to have a martini at that steakhouse because they really know what they're doing there. And I kind of work my way towards that. So what it reduces is my perfectionism, which drives guilt and shame, which then drives me to feel less than. So I'll tell you what, I'm on track. I'm on track, totally on track. And it really makes me look at, is this worth it? Which is, I'm sort of famous for my Instagram. Is it worth it? I do all these things like, is it actually worth it for me to drink? Like, my husband's an actor. We had a closing night party. It was like a free bar. And everyone's like, you're not going to drink. And I'm like, they have the worst wine at these bars. Like, it's not worth it. So it
Yeah.
makes me go in and actually say, so when we're forming habits, the tendency is to say, I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to I'm going to do it every single day for the next 21 days, and that's going to make a habit. No, it's really about thinking about a longer term and having a range of times that when you do what you didn't plan to do, you can say there's zero guilt or shame, because the biggest danger in the messing or the pulling back or the regaining of weight or the going in and, saying, well, I guess I messed up with the drinking, I'll drink every day till the next year, is this guilt and shame. So the minute we can eradicate that, and we know from science, from looking at your brain under an MRI, the fastest way to eradicate guilt and shame is with gratitude. Gratitude lets serotonin and dopamine go flying, right? Like go flying into your brain. And it forces you to think about all the things that are good in your life, whereas all this guilt and shame force you to think about all the things you did wrong. If we can flood the zone and just simply think of something that you're grateful for, the fact that it's sunny out today, or, whatever little piece of something that you can be happy about, you can release serotonin and you can stop that guilt and shame. And then you can get in on the conversation and say, hey, you know what? I had a couple beers with my buddies last night. That's cool. But I haven't had a drink all year. I did it once. I am killing it this year. Oh my gosh, I am really rocking this thing. Let's go. I'm gonna reassign. Let's think about 3 months. Let's think about maybe 3 to 5 times in the next 3 months, I may have a drink. Maybe I don't have any, but moving away from the A plus, going to the B. I know it's terrifying for those of us that are high energy, go-getter type people, but you will get so much more accomplished by achieving a B, a high B even. A B plus is great. It's a lot better than a A and an F, which averages a C, right? C's didn't really get us anywhere in life. So it's just a way to relieve that pressure.
Yeah, it's a good point you mentioned about most people, especially high achievers, tend to be that mode, right? Black and white. It's either an A or an F. I tend to fall in that bucket, and I'm trying to get away from that because, you talked about the casino players wanting to put in more and more, even though they have this loss. And it's a sunk cost fallacy that you can have in a lot of different aspects, whether it's investing or whether it's your habits. And one thing that I find with habits is, I have friends of mine that, let's say, have been trying to eat well or not drinking, but they'll not accidentally, but they will, unfortunately, let's say, have a sip of a beer. And what happens is their internal mindset, they go, oh man, like I was on such a good streak, but I let myself down. And then they go on a binge.
Yes.
So if they eat a little bit of dessert, they will spend the rest of that day going all in on eating the worst foods that they could possibly eat because they've already broken their streak. So their mindset is, it's either I've already broken it, so I may as well just go all in and enjoy it. Instead of saying probably the healthy way, which is I took one bite, I messed up, but let's get back on the saddle and let's continue the streak the day after. But I think our mindset is so much such that when we lose a streak or when we make a mistake, now all of the progress that have been made before is irrelevant all of a sudden, which shouldn't really be the case. It's kind of, you have to look at it from a longer perspective of time rather than week over week.
And as I say, if I can get someone to start thinking in ranges, right, versus all or nothing, choose something that is a challenge for you, and then think in a range of like, okay, the 3 to 5, or I'm doing 25 and 25. So it's helping me to really manage my drinking. I've done better this beginning of this year than I probably have done in 5 years. That's amazing. I'll take that. I am winning. But others might say that's, you could have done better. Right. And so I was writing little notes while you were talking, because I think, again, if you think about the intricacy that we're talking about, what you're exemplifying right now is what we call negative self-talk.
Mm.
Guilt and shame create a cortisol release. We can see it. Cortisol gets released in the system, which is a stress hormone. That stress hormone, once it gets released into the system, creates negative self-talk and greases the wheels for more negative self-talk, leading to sort of a depressive state. So this cortisol is shoved out, and adrenaline, a little bit of cortisol, a little bit of adrenaline. You grease the wheels of negative self-talk. And you say, oh, see, I can't do it. Like you were saying, it mentally messes with you. And you start hearing negative thoughts, negative self-talk. We call her the mean girl, or the mean guy shows up to tell you all the things you didn't do today, all the things you didn't do this year, all the things you haven't finished. And that creates the stress hormone, which is a greaser of the wheels. It makes more stress and more negative self-talk show up. And guess what makes that all go away? Food, alcohol. Even if it's just for a minute, it all goes away. Even what we can see is the minute that someone decides, you know what, I'm going to go get that. I'm going to go get a glass of wine, and I'm going to go out and have pizza. From the minute they make that decision, the anticipation of the treat begins to put out serotonin. So it's immediate. Just the thinking about whatever the thing is begins an anticipatory serotonin boost, which is finally making that mean girl go away because, at least I've decided I'm never going to lose this weight. So I may as well have fun, is what I hear everybody express it and how I felt. And if we can get in front of that and go, oh, wow, I am really hearing a lot of negative self-talk right now. Let me think about what are the things that make negative self-talk go away for me. I don't know about you, exercise does it. Sunlight does it. Walking outside does it. My dog does it. My drinking a huge glass of water, listening to music, like doing something that can reverse that without going down that. Like stop the cortisol, stop the stress hormone from getting shoved out into your body so that you can manage the negative self-talk. Understand those are just thoughts. They're not real. And one of the most important lines in my book that no one ever really hears me on for like 2 years, which is so hard for me because I say it all the time, but then someone 2 years in will say to me, oh my God, I just understood what you said. 80% of the thoughts that you have had already. So today, you are going to have 80% of the thoughts that you have today are repetitive and they're negative. So if you can start to hear the fact that they said, oh, you didn't get up on time today, you were late. Well, you see, you can't do anything. See, oh, you're never going to get that promotion. See, well, let's just stop off at the donut shop. See, okay, right? It's all the same. It's the same patterns. And again, I keep a little thing on my desk here that I try to remind people of is that this is just noise. It's a little mini Etch-a-Sketch for those of us old enough to remember one of these, where you're drawing and there's noise and it's being created. Stress is happening. When I hear the negative thoughts, I erase them. I'll shake my head physically to be like, how is this helpful? This isn't even real what I'm thinking right now. These negative thoughts, this negative input isn't real. These are thoughts inside my head. I heard someone say to me yesterday, you will talk to yourself more than you talk to any other human for the rest of your life. So you better start learning how to do it better. And we're so mean, and we think the meaner we are, the better we're going to do, right? It's this idea that if we kick the horse harder, it's going to run faster, which is the absolute opposite if you've ever ridden a horse. The harder you kick it, the slower it's going to go, and the worse that ride is going to be. But the minute you learn how to finesse it, how to back off a little bit, how to be kind to you and everyone around you, life just opens up. Like I think we're stuck in this like Goggins mindset of like, we got to do all this stuff. And if we don't do enough, we're not good. And if we don't try hard, if we don't break ourselves down, and that breaks us down. And so,
I think, I'm guilty of certainly motivating myself through this self-talk of maybe running away from something rather than being pulled towards something. And perhaps a lot of people listening to this are as well. And I think partly for that is because we've had experiences in our lives, mostly in a short-term basis where that has worked. Let's say you're running out of money and you need to pay the bills, or someone is chasing after you and you got to run. And like these short instances, you can kind of recall moments of your life where you've kind of leveraged fear to get
Yeah.
a result.
Yep.
But like you mentioned, it's probably not the most sustainable way long term to
Mm.
be able to do that and achieve a result, which is so necessary, as you mentioned. Talking about 85% of people regaining the weight back, it's probably because a lot of the weight loss programs that we have are, get results in 4 weeks, or get six pack abs in 6 weeks.
Totally.
And unfortunately, that's just the way humans are wired, to be attracted to short-term results and so forth. Talk to me about that, like the modern day weight loss programs that have existed and still exist today that are promising very short-term results. What are the problems with that? And what should people be aware of before they sign up for a program like that? Because it sounds catchy, it sounds great.
Yes.
And,
And I wish I had $1 for every person that says to me, like, it's not going fast enough. Like, I want to lose it faster. And I'm like, how did that work out for you last time? Like, you were miserable for 6 or 8 weeks. You lost 10 or 12 pounds, maybe 15 pounds. You regained them in 3 and had to do it all over again. Right. So obviously, like, for me, it's like the definition of insanity is that you're going to do it the same way, but again, you take me for a great example. I was inundated in this way of being and thinking and acting from the time I was formative, 12, 14 years old. You're going, oh, this is how it feels. This is what I do. This is what it looks like. And then we regain it all. And then we get sad enough that we go back in. And it's all training. And it was all, again, sort of, when people find out that Heinz owned Weight Watchers, a food company owned Weight Watchers.
I had no idea. Wow.
Yeah. This is what the industry does. And so they make highly palatable foods and they put them in front of you, and then you regain all the weight. They make it off of you going up. They make it off of you going down. So that's when I say, can you get a little angry? Can you get your eyes open to the environment that we live in? Not in a paranoid sense. Like, I am living a full life. I'm having glasses of wine. I'm having bites of cake. I am not restricting. I'm learning what my actual physiology, how that's being leveraged against me. I'm learning habit formation. And habit formation is a huge platform on which I stand, which is, there's any behavior you want to change today can be changed. Any behavior, right? So you talk about not going to bed when you want to. That is just a habit pattern. There are thoughts and feelings and beliefs all around bedtime for you. And we have to rewire those thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. We have to then trigger a new routine, a routine that works for you. Like, I can't just be like, just set an alarm and go upstairs at 9:30 and put your head down. Like, it's not going to work. We have to that's why we all have to do the work that is internal for us about, what do I really want? What do I want at the end of the day? Why am I interested in going to bed earlier? What do I believe that that's going to do for me? And then I always ask people, what we do at Target 100 is to identify 1 or 2 small shifts in your behavior around that habit that you could do that would make a massive impact. So for my people, a lot of times they're eating after dinner. They have a bad habit of eating after dinner. What we know that does is it disrupts sleep. And so it actually amps up the body. It heats up the body because you have to have thermogenesis to move the food through the body. The thing that your body needs to sleep is cool temperatures, and your body temperature drops during sleep. So could we just work on not eating after dinner? Or could we work on, actually turning screens off and moving to reading either a Kindle that doesn't have sort of blue light, or real books? Those 2 things are much more impactful than being like, I'm going to go upstairs at 9:30 every single night for the rest of my life. And if I don't do it, I'm a bad person. So we think behavior change over setting these sort of static kind of rules and things in place. And that's what's really been wrong. That's what's wrong with what you're talking about, these short-term sort of, I'm going to hurt myself for 6, 8, 12 weeks. And here's what's crazy. What we know, you said 85% of people regain. most people who go on a diet, a regular traditional diet, don't make it to the 12-week mark, right? For multiple reasons. We see about 50% of people fall off at the 4 or 5 week area. This opens up that conversation, I think, for me about what the newest fad diet is, which is GLP-1s. And I say it because even the pharmaceutical companies are treating it like a fad diet. They are doing the big flashy dancing commercials with people in multicolored outfits who are living their best life. And the truth about the GLP-1s is they're getting the same results as a traditional weight loss program. People are not making it. 60% of people who go on a GLP-1 do not make it to the 12-week mark because of multiple things, whether it's the side effects, whether it's the fact that for some people they just don't work, or the fact that they're so expensive that they can't sustain it. People are not doing that, but it's the same old story. Hey, just do this. Feel like crap for, be nauseous, have no energy, lose bone density, muscle mass, but you'll be skinny. And, okay, and I don't have to think about it, and I don't have to do anything for it. I just have to do this one thing. And so it's very similar to all of the things that have come down the diet pike in the past.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where it feels kind of like a magic pill, right? You pop a pill, which is, I think now it's going to come in a pill form, but you inject yourself and voila, your satiety's gone, all of these things gone. But obviously there are side effects to it. But in relation to what you mentioned about these fast weight loss programs not really working, I've also heard, I think it was in the same article from Stanford Medicine, that there's a biological reason for it, which is that when you lose like a bunch of weight so quickly, our bodies are naturally going to lower metabolism, which means you're going to be more sensitive to regaining that weight loss because your body's like, why are you losing so much weight? We need to make sure that we can even that out by lowering your metabolism. And it's why a lot of people are more prone to gaining weight back if they lose it so quickly. So it's another reason why I guess these fast weight loss programs are not attuned to how our bodies are naturally supposed to, lose weight.
Yeah. Well, and that we talk about that as like the Biggest Loser study. They looked at all the past contestants that were on the weight loss program who lost weight very, very rapidly, called the Biggest Loser back in the day. And they studied, and 90% of those people gained all of their weight back plus. They were put on to, for anyone listening who never saw it, they were put on to sort of like a campus where they lived and they worked out 6 hours a day, and they were fed low calorie meals. And the body that we live in is so smart. It will adjust and it will make you survive no matter what. I always say your body is smarter than you, so stop trying to trick it. It's going to figure it out. So when we reduce its caloric intake and rapidly increase the output of calories, and it has to live on 500, 600, 700 calories in a day, it says, okay, I'll learn to do that because I still have to make your heart beat. I want you to survive, so I will figure it out. So it lowers. We see that people who have dramatically dieted, and again, GLP-1s on people eating 500, 600, 700 calories because they're just not interested in food. They're eating their own muscle mass. They're losing bone density. And when they're coming off of these medications, they're honestly regaining at a rate we've almost never seen before, because number one, they didn't have any skills when they were taking it off, right? They weren't thinking about anything because they didn't have to. And then they have no skills to maintain what that weight loss was. And their bodies have now learned, like you said, to live at. So I know that I should, as a female, I'm 5'4", I should be able to eat probably 15 to 1,700 calories to sustain my weight. But because of all of the dramatic diets that I did, I exercise almost daily, and I take in between 12 and 1,300 calories a day to sustain my actual weight loss. That's because I trained my body over all those multiple years of restrictive dieting. And that's fine. Like once I understood oh, okay, like I can't follow these 2,000 calorie diets a day and be like, I'm going to be fine. I'm regaining weight. Look at the data. Use your
Yeah.
scale, use your Fitbits, use your, all the devices that we have to help us understand what's actually happening versus just saying, oh, let me just turn my power over to somebody else. It's really about, and that's what Target 100 is about, is let me give you the tools to build your own program based on you. Right? Like, so for Sean, we might be really thinking about the pillar of sleep. And many of my folks come in and we don't even think about food. Like the food, I have so many success stories of people who just thought about their water, their movement, and their sleep and started losing really, really nicely because we were able to, water was like helping them to not feel as hungry, giving them more energy. The movement patterns, instead of being exercise, which can be very hard for people, to put into their lives. It's an intricate habit to create, but moving more can be pretty simple. And then getting rest and having their hormones balanced the next day, having less what we call ghrelin, the hormone that makes you hungrier, running through your system all day. Suddenly they're eating so much less and losing weight, but it's not sexy. Like, when somebody's weight loss lasts, it's because they've learned through the process what's right for them as a person, as a human, what's important, what they care about. What, for me, I was like, you know what? I love wine. I'm never giving it up. I'm going to work every day to figure out how to keep it in a way that works for me. Whereas other people would be like, I don't care anything about wine. But chocolate or salty things, I can't live without. So it has to be about building your own program. Whereas what the weight loss industry has always been, what you're talking about is, hey, here's a program, follow it to the letter. You'll get weight loss, but you won't own an inch of it. You will just be following somebody else's rules. And eventually you can't stick to it anymore. So there has to be this full rotation in the weight loss industry. But unfortunately, I think it's going all the wrong way. Right now, the message is there's a magic pill where you can shut down your brain and think nothing about food and wake up one day. It feels like a little bit like Severance, if you know what I mean. And wake up one day and just be like, okay, now I'm thinking about food again. They took away the drug. The memory block is gone. And I have no skills to sustain this. So they're setting you up for a lifetime of issues or lifetime dependency. So it's it's an interesting thing. Well, and I believe these are incredible tools. Like I know that I sound right now like I do believe they're incredible tools and that they're helping people. But what we know is without a program, without working at it while you are losing the weight to learn about the lifestyle intervention that will sustain the weight loss, we're seeing you regain the weight immediately. So really think about, if you are thinking about going that path, you are on that path, and so many people are. And as I said, like if you're morbidly obese and we can get you to a place where you can actually even walk again, then that's incredible, right? We'll take that because the medical complications from where you are to what we can now do by having you move more, having you, be able to maybe even exercise or do the things you couldn't physically do. That's like incredible. So these are great tools, but they also need support. They need programs around them.
Yeah, let's go through. I don't think we've gone through this yet, which is the 6 pillars that you talk about in the book and also Target 100. We mentioned it a few times, but what exactly is Target 100? And let's go through the 6 pillars for people to understand your approach to weight loss compared to some of the modern approaches that we've been seeing.
Yeah. So my philosophy came, again, like I've said, after 20 years of being in the industry, of suffering myself, and realizing that if we approach it from just the food pillar or even food and exercise alone, that it's only sustainable for so long. Because the other 4 pillars that we talk about in Target 100, hydration, everyday movement, right? Like getting more movement in your life, exercise, of course, stress patterns, sleep patterns, we're not going to be able to sustain it because my example of sleep is my favorite. If you are on a great roll and then one night you miss sleep, we can see that your hormones get elevated for hunger. We see that ghrelin, which is a hormone that makes you very, very hungry, goes up by 15% if you have a bad night of sleep. And another hormone called leptin drops by 15%. So you have a 30% gap the next day where you are much hungrier and much less able to stop eating. So you wake up and you're like, I'm on a good roll. I've had like 2 weeks. I'm awesome. You wake up the next day and you're starving and you don't understand why.
Yeah, I can
Right. So
totally
we're
relate to
teaching
that.
you why, and you go, oh, I'm exhausted today. And then we give you this. Okay, so here's what we do on a day that we have had really low sleep. We've got to uber hydrate. We've got to focus on protein foods. And you have to understand that the hunger is what I call faux hunger or fake hunger. You're fine. Like I said, you can go 30 days. But if you don't know that, if you're only looking at calories in and calories out, and I mean, all of the pillars have hormonal pieces to them. When you move more throughout the day, we can see your blood sugar is regulated, your mood is regulated, insulin is regulated, right? The hormone is regulated, but we don't move. I have so many clients who never even leave their homes in a day because they wake up and they sit down on a Zoom and right? So we're not even getting outside into fresh air. Our environment has deteriorated. Hydration, huge impact on people in terms of their satiety, their energy levels. People don't recognize that they're made up of almost 70% water in the biggest metabolic systems in their body, like their brain and their heart. So when you are dehydrated, you are low energy, you think you're hungry, right? So we go back to our prehistoric people who were wandering the plains. When they were dehydrated, they looked for food that had water in it, like grasses and berries, to survive. Because you heard me, we can't go 2 days without water. So our bodies started to signal hunger when we were thirsty. So we are 75% of our country is critically dehydrated. And that critical dehydration is leading people to overeat when they're actually thirsty. So every pillar comes together to make you feel so much better. And the weight loss follows that. So that's my philosophy.
That's a big mental unlock, hey? Like a lot of the times when I think I'm hungry, it's so true. Like I drink a glass of water or, a coconut water, whatever it might be, and I'm completely fine. I'm just like, it's crazy the mental trick that your body does or that your brain does that thinks that you're hungry and then you just drink water and maybe like 40% of the time I'm just thirsty and I'm completely fine after that. Yeah.
And that's like my favorite example of habit formation, right? People are always like, oh, for my New Year's resolution, I'm going to drink more water. And it's like, okay, great. And they don't understand habit formation. Habits are these things that live in the back portion of your brain that have been shunted to a portion of your brain where you don't think about them anymore, right? There's things like, I always say if you drove to work in the morning and you got there and you don't have any idea how you got there, where we've all had that happen to us, that is because you've driven that path so many times that the brain can shunt it into this back portion of the brain. When we say we're going to create a habit, when we say, oh, I'm going to drink more water, and we just say we're going to do it, we revert to our pattern, which is to not drink water. And we're asleep, basically. For 50% of our day, we're asleep. We're just doing rote patterns. I come up here. I'm up in my office talking about water. I've got my little water bottle here that I can't even come up here without it. And I fill it up exactly the same way. And then I go get my computer and I get my glasses. And if you watched me, you'd be like, that's so creepy. She does everything, even with the same hands. But I'm not there. I'll come up here and I'll be like, oh, I did. I brought my water. I don't remember bringing my water. But because it's such a rote behavior. So when I said earlier, you can literally create any behavior you want. That's how I wrote my book. I talk about it all the time. I'd never written a book before. I was like, how do I do that? I was like, okay, at every single day at 11 o'clock, I'm going to set an alarm, which becomes the trigger. The alarm says it's time to go upstairs and write. I sit in the same spot. I open my computer. I have a 2-hour window. I said to myself, just start writing and researching for 2 hours. If you hate it, you can throw it all away. I triggered it so many times that 11 o'clock, I didn't even need an alarm anymore. I just came up here, sat down, and started working. That's like habit formation with water, with drinking water. I always have, you got to get something that triggers you. I have my bright yellow water bottle here, or you set alarms on your phone. At Target 100, we've sent people these beautiful water bottles that actually have technology inside of them that trigger you to drink the water, that light up on your desk every 30 minutes or so. They track every ounce of water that you drink so that you can become habituated. You can habituate any pattern you want. So I became an author through habit pattern. I became my exercise. I've run marathons. I've done, all of these different things in my life. Whenever I want to create or become something new, it's about figuring out what I need to habituate to the point where it becomes rote behavior. And that's sort of just understanding and unlocking that there is no behavior you can't change. If it's eating after dinner and you want to stop eating after dinner, I always say you're going to have to trigger it, because you're just going to sit on that same couch cushion where you sit every night and watch that Netflix and get triggered by the food on the screen and end up in the pantry and not know how you got there. You're going to have to put a Post-it note on your seat that says go upstairs. You're going to have to go upstairs and watch up there, which will change your brain for the environment that you're sitting in. It'll go, oh, okay, we don't eat food up here. Then you don't eat food. But you have to do it so many times. And the thing about habit formation that I think is tricky, that I think will help you even in your examples that you've shared today, unfortunately, the old pathway never goes away. So my old pathway of sitting on the couch and eating there and wandering back to the pantry has been burned into my neural pathways. And it can get fainter, but it always exists. And it's ready to be reawakened. So it's always looking for the things that are very comfortable and easier. So when we fall back, like we talked about me saying, get a B, or when we go and do something that we didn't plan on, I like to use it as a moment to examine what were the triggers that put me into that particular place that made my brain say, tonight I do want that drink. Was it stress, or was it a pattern with my husband that we always do this and it was celebratory, or it was because I was upset about something, or was it because it was in my house? Like, let me examine what got that pathway going and then reiterating. So as I said, like, I'm doing the 25 and 25. We had a weekend where we went out, and it was my birthday weekend. We went and spent some time at a friend's house and had drinks 2 nights in a row. And I came home, and my only goal was, I always say, stick the landing. Made sure I had nothing in the house that would trigger me, made sure that I was busy that evening, made sure that I could keep habituating the pattern of not drinking on Monday night or Tuesday night or Wednesday night or Thursday night, really not drinking. That's what I'm habituating right now, are patterns. And it's already working. Here we are in February, and I am like, most nights not thinking about it, where it was a very regular thing for us to drink. It started in COVID and became this thing that we did as we came downstairs from Zoom, and it grew and grew and grew. And I was like, I don't like that. And so I use habit formation to reverse patterns in my life. And it does not go perfectly. That's why I said, get a B. I've made mistakes. I've slipped back. But I just go, wow, okay, it's just the habit pathway. It's still there. Let me calm it and reiterate the new one. I draw it in my book as these 2 roads, right? The old one is a super highway where you don't have to pay any attention. You can just like hold the wheel and lean back, The new habit feels like you're driving on a dirt road over, like, in a pickup truck that has like no, like, like, the wheels are falling off and you're just holding on for dear life. But if you drive over that bumpy road enough, it smooths out and smooths out, and then it gets bigger and wider and easier. So that's what I'm have happen to me. So yeah, have I been perfect? No, but I've really been smoothing out that bumpy road over here to make it my new road. And this one's getting fainter and fainter and fainter to come and have a little drink on the front porch after work. It's just not normal to do that anymore. So yeah. I try to use examples to give people an idea of how to implement this as well.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really stood out for your approach to weight loss and just health in general is this focus on mindset and how much you focus on the mental side of things. Most typical programs, it's about eat this superfood or, do this, follow this 6-step process to lose weight, or this exercise program or this workout. And I think you mentioned in an interview that meditation is your number one tool
Mhm.
for people to lose weight, which is like really caught my attention. I was like, how is meditation? And then now it's starting to make sense. But explain that a little bit more and how you leverage meditation and why you think it's the number one tool for people to lose weight and
Yeah.
not a workout program or a
Yeah.
special food.
Yeah. Well, and thank you. Because that to me, I think you and I were chit chatting and I said, you don't need me. In fact, I've never met a person when I sat down with them for the first time and said like, okay, so if I took you to a restaurant and I said you could have this grilled salad with chicken over it or fettuccine Alfredo, which one would be healthier? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Like no one's ever said that to me. They're like, oh, of course, a salad with chicken would be a smart choice.
Yeah.
Everyone knows what the smart choice is. This is why I'm so embedded in habit formation, behavior change, mindset. You all know what to eat. You just having trouble jumping the gap from the intention to the action. The meditation piece, and I'll kind of expand meditation because I think meditation can be polarizing when we say meditation. I'll expand meditation to stress relief. And that's a pillar of Target 100. Like just as important as understanding food is understanding stress and your stress response. Because every person, again, that I interview and I ask them, why did you regain that 50 pounds? They'll say to me, oh, I lost my job. Oh, my husband and I got a divorce. Oh, my dad died. Oh, there's always a stressful thing that occurred that forced them to stop focusing. Stress, again, when we talk about hormones, every time we have a stressful thing occur, or even just a stress response to even just any stressful experience, your boss calling and saying you're late with your project, or you almost getting in a car accident, but being okay, we have an entire stress hormone response that occurs of us having a flush of adrenaline that's followed up by a big flush of cortisol. And those two things that occur, and now they're occurring every day, all day, right? They're occurring when my text notification goes off on my phone. We can see when we look at your brain on an MRI, every ding, every ring, everything that we're under now, it's a tiny little stress response. So we're living in this heightened stress response state where cortisol and adrenaline are driving into our system at all times. They make us hungry. Just like the ghrelin and the leptin at your sleep, when you don't sleep well, if you are stressed out, adrenaline is a hormone that makes you, have the strength to lift the car off of a baby. It pushes all of this energy into your bloodstream, and it's followed up by cortisol, which says, we just lost a little bit of energy. We got to go make them hungrier so that they will have enough energy if another stressful thing happens. So again, I use these funny examples of like if we were being chased by a tiger back when we were prehistoric, we would run really fast and we would use a little bit of our fat stores to run away from that tiger. We would be faster because of the adrenaline, we would survive. Now we're having it flushed into our system every 5 seconds. So we're at an elevated hunger level all the time when we're stressed out. So I say meditation, but if you don't meditate, that's fine too. Let's call it stress relief. Finding a way to go in multiple times a day. This cannot just be like, I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes and be done. Multiple times a day to release the cortisol in your system, because until we go in and turn it off, you want to think of it as like if you left the lights on in the basement and you just don't realize the lights are on, or if you left the car running in the driveway, it's just out there running. That's what's happening for people now, is that they're living in the stress state. It will stay on like the lights in the basement. It will stay on until you go down and turn it off. And it will make you hungrier. It will make you crave what? Not baby carrots. Nope.
Sugar, sweets,
salt, fat, all the
all
things
bad
in the
stuff.
line at Target. Right? Like you will be so susceptible to those things. So what I ask people to do is find out what is your meditation, right? And for me, it is a small meditation visualization in the morning, right when I wake up in my quiet time. Then I take a couple of minutes up here in my office and I do what I call grounding. I lay on the ground and play a little bit of music for 3 minutes. Later in the day, I play with my animals, which is very stress relieving. I have 2 big dogs that I love. They make me feel amazing. They give me a little bit of stress relief. I take walks twice a day with my dogs. So I want you to kind of find these places where you can go in, sort of just like the water example, Sean, like where you're like, oh my gosh, 40% of that was not hunger. another 40% of your hunger is just cortisol and adrenaline based triggers that are making you believe you need salt, sugar, and fat to shut down. So we've learned a bad habit. I feel so stressed. Let me have a drink at the end of the day. I feel so stressed. Let me have a candy bar. I feel so stressed. I deserve this to have this pasta dish for dinner. It's all driven out of that hormonal response to stress. So if I can get people to really focus on just these itty bitty, what I call medicinal doses of stress relief, of meditations, and it's so easy now. Just put it on your phone, listen to some music. It's right at your fingertips. Close your eyes for a few minutes and do some deep breathing. It doesn't have to be major, but you have to get it out or you are going to, like I said, I draw it as an infinity loop in my book. It's if you're stressed out all day, I don't know why you think you're going to be able to walk down in your building out onto the street and smell pizza and walk by Dunkin' Donuts and go like and be strong and have willpower in the environment that we live in. Now that you understand you're set up to fail physiologically already, then you layer stress on top of that and the environment, and you've got a 70% overweight and obese population now. So it's just so much more intricate than anyone is giving it credit for. And so,
yeah, I mean, when it comes, when you're talking about meditation, I agree. Like maybe not everybody meditates, and it's probably a blocker for some people that don't know how to meditate, to learn how to meditate, just to be able to lose weight. So we don't want to make that a blocker for them. But at the end of the day, it seems like you're encouraging people to build certain habits so that at the end of the day that they can make better decisions, right? Whether it's meditation, sleeping better, being hydrated, relieving your stress. You want to put your mental state in a position where you're making better decisions so that when you are in a position where you're tempted with food or alcohol, you have the willpower and the ability to stray away from those and make better decisions. In relation to that, when we are put in a position where we are in lack of willpower, because even though we try to sleep well, sometimes it doesn't happen, or we're put in social situations, particularly perhaps where you're, feeling more tempted to drink or to eat certain foods. Are there any questions or frameworks that we can ask ourselves that could help us be a little bit more, braver, have a little bit more courage, let's say, to stray away from that? So I tend to have pretty good discipline, but when it comes to, if I'm really stressed out or if I have too much caffeine, like I can be a little bit more irritable.
Mhm.
And one of my best friends, Raymond, he's really one of the most kind-hearted people. And I have this thought sometimes where I would say, okay, like what would Raymond do in that situation?
Yep.
And that immediately kind of puts me in a frame or mindset that says, oh, like I should be a lot nicer. I should be a little bit more calmer. So asking myself that question in certain settings can help.
Yes.
Just to make better decisions. So is there anything like that you would recommend for people?
Yeah, because unfortunately, this is going to be a 24/7 battle, right? I've now outlined pretty clearly for you what you're up against. I always say the deck is stacked, right? So you got to be ready to that you are going to end up at a party and you are going to, there is going to be the day where you, don't feel like you can, do what you're wanting to do. Or I find it a lot with exercise. People are like, oh, I didn't feel like going today. And that because I didn't exercise means I'll just eat whatever I want and I will, right? They're relating things to one another. My famous line, this is literally what I am famous for is, what's my next best move? Regardless, it doesn't matter what I've done. I can't change it anyway. But so I go to a party and I decide to have a glass of wine, and it really wasn't on my radar that was kind of it wasn't on, like, I didn't think it was going to happen tonight. I was really pretty keyed in on it not happening. What I hope you hear from this is that guilt and shame are useless, and they actually set you up for more failure. So for me to now start beating myself up is the absolute opposite. Instead, I go, you know what? What's my next best move? If I can ask myself that, I go, you know what? I'm going to go get a glass of water now. I'm going to go move out of this room where they're pouring the wine or away from the bar. I'm going to go talk to my friend. I'm going to go tell my friend, you know what? Don't let me go back to that bar. What's my next best move? It relieves you of all the guilt and shame, and it allows you to look at this situation as me winning because I'm making the best next move. There's no guilt or shame. So drop it. Again, like you saw my Etch-a-Sketch, erase all the thoughts about it because you can't go back and take that decision back. And it's fine. I always say to people, no one ever gained weight from one mistake. They gained weight from the mistake making them feel guilty and them extending that into not just days, but weeks, months, years before they're ready to go back and say, let me try to tackle this again because I know how awful it's going to be. So it's really about learning being able to say to yourself, what's my next best move? And getting into that very positive mindset around, I've done nothing wrong here. I had a glass of wine. I didn't kill anybody. And if I don't go and say, oh, I had a glass of wine, I guess I'll go in the other room and eat all the cupcakes too. If we can get away from that, which this was the basis of Target 100, was that I spent the early part of my career when I just started at Weight Watchers. I was at the lowest end of the company. I was the person that would weigh ladies in when they came in the door. And these women would come in and say this to me. They'd say, oh, had such a great week and I was doing so well. And then on Friday, I went to this party. I only had 30 points left and I ate 32. And I felt so bad about it that it was a lost weekend. And here I am. And I'm like, wait, why do we do that? It's guilt and shame that get highlighting that reward system. And then it's learned behavior that I've messed something up. Therefore, I'm bad. Therefore, X, therefore, Y, therefore, Z. So if we can stop that thought pattern, it's not true. She had a couple of extra points. 32 versus 30 was never going to stand in the way of her weight loss. But a whole weekend of ice cream and cookies and wine and pizza, that's going to stand in the way of you making a lot of progress. But the glass of wine never did. So it's finding that balance. It's finding the B, right? Finding how to be not so hard on yourself that you then go pushing into the guilt and shame, which just is going to push you into that old behavior pattern.
Yeah.
And remember, the brain is always looking for the old behaviors because they're much more comfortable than the new bumpy road that you're trying to go down.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to end off with sharing some, I hate this word, hacks, I guess is the best way to put it, low hanging fruits. I tend to be pretty lazy in that, I'm trying to figure out before I make any big changes or big efforts, whether it's growing a business or a health change. I think about what's the least amount of work that I need to do or change in my current routine or current system that will yield some results. Whether it's a small routine change, whether it's a tiny purchase I could make that would just allow me to have the same results, if not better, for lower effort. And I think most people want to try to get as much effort as they can. For example, I've read that eating protein and fat before, like 20 to 30 minutes before you eat a carb heavy meal can reduce your blood sugar by 30 to 50% or something like that. Just by switching, you're eating the same food, but just switching the order of when you eat certain meals can just have such a big impact in your glucose levels and your insulin levels. So that's like such a big hack, right? Because like you're eating the same food, but you're just eating it in a different order. You've done really nothing that's different.
Yeah.
Another one that I've adopted is for drinking water is just to buy like a 2-liter stainless steel bottle, something that's like massive, because humans, I think it's called like the Zeigarnik effect or something like that, where humans have a hard time not completing things. So this is why we love like cliffhangers at a series and we want to watch the next episode.
Yeah.
We just like hate uncompleted things, or why we love to-do lists. So like having just a large water bottle, which is such a small purchase, like $20, $30, and you just fill it up and seeing that it hasn't been completed is going to drive you crazy, where like you're just going to drink more water instead of drinking in a small glass where you complete it and you forget about it, right?
Yes.
So talk to me about that. I'm sure you've got tons of these just small effort things or purchases or behavioral tweaks that people can make, that whether it's for sleep, whether it's drinking more water, movement, all these things that you mentioned.
Yeah, I think there's so many, and what you're talking about is the heart and soul of Target 100. I don't believe in sweeping change. I don't believe that it's ever going to be something you have to allow the brain to go through the routine changes. Like I think about my own journey with even like reducing alcohol, right? I've done, I did these times where I would do 150 days with no alcohol, and then I would go back to it, and it would be like sort of all or nothing-ish. And then, right, like, and over time, what I've done is just dehabituate the regularity with which I have it, but it has not been a linear process. And so, small changes, really investigate. That's what we do at Target 100. Like I said, we have in week 1, we talk about the behavior modification worksheet. And I ask people to think about, because I do believe this is so individualized. You right now would be thinking about, if I said to you, I want you to think about 1 or 2 things that you could do in your life, very small shifts to behavior, whether it's I'm going to get up 5 minutes earlier, because if I got up 5 minutes earlier, I wouldn't be rushing out the door, which is making me stressed out, miss my bus, have a huge cortisol rush, be late to work, think I'm going to get fired, right? That would impact me so greatly that it would be such a giant payoff. And so if we're thinking, and then I sort of always think in those 6 pillars. I think you gave a great example with the food piece. I also think really just saying, I'm going to commit to thinking about my hunger signals more than anything else. You don't need to track every bite of food you take. You don't need to, like, literally just saying, I will pause for 30 to 60 seconds before I eat my meals. That's it. I'm going to not say I'm changing any food, but I am going to, and I'm just doing this with a group of mine right now, and had a woman who posted just today. She's like, we're doing this thing. We're setting this little alarm as we sit down. We're just giving us 30 seconds to 60 seconds to close our eyes and scan our bodies to see if we're even hungry. She's like, I was eating because it's breakfast o'clock. I've created a routine. I make this breakfast. I eat it before I go to work. She's like, I'm not even remotely hungry for this breakfast when I sat down and actually thought about it and looked and scanned my body. So if you could, we know that people are overeating. We know that you're eating based out of rule-based eating, time-based eating, clock, right? Saying it's lunch o'clock, I'm going to go eat, whether you're hungry or not. Learning to get in touch with your hunger signals. What we know, again, guilt and shame disconnect us from our body hunger signals. It disconnects us. So dropping guilt and shame and just being like, and so she was like then very open to saying, okay, I need some new shifts to my behavior of, okay, so we talked to her about like making egg muffins in like little egg tins and bringing them to work and eating when she's actually hungry. That I would say in the food pillar Water, I love your water idea, but again, if you're going to buy something, the Hydrate Spark water bottle, which I do not work for them, I just think they're amazing. It has an app on your phone. It's this beautiful bottle. It lights up, and shakes on your desk when you're supposed to drink water, because most people just forget. Or I have people buy several water bottles, fill them up, in the morning and place them in different spots, usually different colors, and they have to complete the colors before the end of the day. And that really helps. I think for movement, if you could just get outside for 10 minutes in the morning, moving your body in actual sunlight, we see the impact to your mood and your energy levels go through the roof for the day. So that's a very small change. And for most people in their commute, they could just shift something simply that forces them to be outside for 10 or 15 minutes in the morning. Exercise, I think, it doesn't have to be that much. I target 100, everything's around the number 100. If you can get those 100 minutes of stressing that cardiovascular system and that musculoskeletal system in your week, you're fine. As we talked about, stress relief, really make it small. Do it, several times throughout the day. It can be less than a minute, but you're at least, sometimes I just light a candle. I even have a bee on my candle here. I light my little bee candle during the day because just lighting a candle drops my stress. So little things that you can do, huge benefit.
Yeah, even if these things that we mentioned may or may not work for you, I think it's just a good framework for people to think about, because you yourself would know best what will work based on your schedule, based on your time commitment, and all these things that have and have not worked for you before. But the idea here, I guess, is don't think about these big changes where you need to completely shift your life around and your schedule around. Think about first starting what is the least amount of work that I can do? Literally, just think lazy.
Yeah.
And something that you can tweak, or a little purchase that you can buy that can make a big purchase, that make a big impact in terms of how you eat or sleep or move around during the day.
Sort of on a final note, the two things that we know move people to repeat behaviors are if they focus on the positive payoff or benefit, right? So if they did pause before their meal and this woman noticed, holy cow, I'm not even hungry. That's amazing. The positive payoff to that of or going outside and walking for 10 minutes and recognizing, wow, I was just really much happier today. Connecting to the positive payoff or benefit, and then living in what we call a curiosity state. Curiosity is a very positive, forward-thinking mindset. Again, we take the example of us being at a party and having the glass of wine and saying, what is my next best move? I'm curious if I had a glass of water now, what that would feel like. Wouldn't that be interesting? Let me go try that. I'm curious what would happen if I moved to water now. Curiosity is the most powerful motivator, so much more motivating than what we think, that negative self-talk and the beating ourselves up. Nope, no, that's fine. I didn't complete that task. I didn't go to bed on time. I had that extra glass of wine. Whatevs. Leave it and get curious about what is my next best move. So curiosity is a cure-all, along with gratitude. Funny, these are bedrocks of every religion, of every past, guru's self-help book, but now we have actual science that shows they were right.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Liz, thank you so much. I appreciate your time in this informative
what a fun conversation. Thank you.
We had. Yeah, I got to share a little bit about kind of some of the things that I'm working on in my life that, hopefully will improve and along with everyone else. Where can people?
I love your vulnerability, because it's really lovely, because I think sometimes we all think these people are these perfect people. And I don't know that that's helpful, right?
No,
we all know we're all working on something. So I appreciated that.
For sure. And this is just a small sliver of the things I'm working on. So if you want to go real deep, we can go real deep, right? But no, I appreciate you, Liz. And obviously I want to make sure people get your book. Is the app and stuff out? Like, is
Yeah.
there a link that we can link? Okay.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. So we developed an app. The book is called Target 100. You can still get that on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, everywhere. But then we developed a whole app and weight loss program where you can work live with me in an on-demand type live course and coach with me. That is target100.net. Join our on-demand foundation courses. The app is in the App Store. It is free to download, and it's meant to be a companion to our courses. I write courses, I do challenges, we have coaches, we have a whole platform out there. So if you're interested in our way of thinking of this process, we are waiting for you to help you achieve this. And what we do know, I mean, we're seeing that when we change the paradigm, people are able to lose weight and they are able to keep it off. But you can't
awesome.
do the same old, same old. So I'm here with a hopeful message, and I appreciate the platform and your vulnerability was great.
Yeah, I appreciate you having on. And we'll link those to the book and the app in the link below as well, so people can actually go check that out.
Great.
And yeah, thanks so much for tuning in, guys.
Thank you.